Welcome to my channel. I'm Elizabeth Liz Muschett, and today it's Astrology Star Sisters talking about the Taurus Decans using astrology and tarot, and my astrology star sister, colleague, and friend Joy Vernon is joining me today. Welcome, Joy. How are you today?
I'm good, Liz. How are you doing?
Great. I love it that it's spring and everything's the sunshine. Yesterday I did a nice walk, 5 mile walk on the beach. I loved it.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
And I've been working in the yard a lot too.
Oh, very good. Very good.
So Joy's website is joyvernon.com. My website is alightpath.com. And we enjoy hearing from you. And we're talking about the Taurus Decans. So I found a picture that I'd taken of some flowers because I always think of the Taurus energy of gardening and flowers. So I'll let you talk about Taurus, Joy.
Yeah, absolutely. So we start off, Taurus is a fixed earth sign that is ruled by Venus. And so that fixed energy holds on to things. It tries to maintain something. It's enduring or even resisting of change or of lots of things. And it is the middle of the season. So Taurus is the height of the season. So Taurus is the height of spring. And so the ruling planet is Venus. And I went ahead and added in the moon, which is exalted in Taurus, because the moon is one of our planets this time in terms of being the ruler of the second decan. The element earth, solid, stable, secure, committed, slow. So we have a fixed sign and an earth sign. So you can see Taurus is getting very heavy and very slow and determined. And all of that weight of that bull of Taurus is at play here. Its mantra is "I have," and Taurus is associated with possessions and resources. And the keywords, a friend of mine always said that Taurus was food, fashion, and fornication. Although she didn't say fornication, she said a different F word. And it's also finance. And I came up with another F word as I was doing I was reading something totally different, but it used the word fecundity. And I'm like, oh yeah, fecundity. That's a really good Taurus word. But along with that, it comes up with this commitment. I saw a chart once that had the moon and Saturn conjunct in Taurus. And the moon can be somebody's mother and Saturn can be somebody's father. And I looked at this woman's chart, and based on the woman's age and just my intuition, I said, your parents have been married for, is it 60 years now? And she's like, they just celebrated their 55th or 50th or 55th anniversary, and we're hoping they make it to 60. And I was just like, whoa, okay. So yeah, commitment is definitely a Taurus keyword. Culture, it's ruled by Venus, so it loves beautiful things, it loves elegant things, it loves music and art and things like that. And Taurus is loyal. That luxury goes in there with the Venus concept, as well as the kind of sense of having and resources and possessions, things that are valuable. It's stalwart, it's steady, it's sturdy, and it can represent wealth. And the caution, of course, is always swinging towards too much of any of those things. It can get greedy. The main thing is that it's stubborn. I think that's what everybody says for Taurus. And I threw in stonewalling because just the idea of no, I don't want to do it. So that putting up obstacles can be a little bit of a caution with that type of energy.
And I would say very resistant to change.
Yeah. Yeah, Taurus likes to have it the way it is, and they don't want it to change.
Okay, and then do you want to describe the decans for us?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just the 10-day subdivisions of the, or 10-degree subdivisions of the astrological signs. There are two sets of rulers, the triplicity rulers and the Chaldean, and the Chaldean rulership is actually an older form of rulership, and the tarot got aligned with that Chaldean rulership, even though the triplicity is more common in astrology. So some astrologers haven't heard of the Chaldean rulerships for the decans. The tarot does use that variation. And those rulerships follow the order of the visible planets by speed, starting with the slowest. So that Chaldean order is Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon.
So we're going to start with Taurus, and the major arcana card is the Hierophant, and I'll let Joy tell you all about it.
Yeah, and so the we're using the Magic Pantry Tarot by Cedar McLeod. It's a new deck that just came out last year, and Cedar McLeod self-publishes under the Numinous Spirit Press, and they're most known for the Numinous Tarot, which is a gorgeous deck that I really recommend. And Cedar is also an author as well as an artist, writes novels and fiction. Extremely talented person, and I just love this deck because it's totally food themed. And I thought, how, what is more Taurus than a deck full of whole food references. And so the Hierophant comes in as meat and meat substitutes, and you can see tempeh and seitan and a vegan kind of chicken nugget type of thing. And you see the grain in there, and there is a pig for actual meat and some other chickens in the background and whatever else is back there. And so I think one of the things that I get out of that association of the meats and meat substitutes for Taurus, I think probably the main reference there is that Taurus is the bull. And so a cow, meat, hamburger, steak, whatever. But also just the idea, these are our, some of our main fuels for the body. And Taurus is associated with the body because it's that I have. It's like Aries is the identity, and then when the identity becomes aware that it has a body, and so Taurus gets assigned to that body. And so a lot of that protein stuff is such a major emphasis in building that body, and I think that's where that came from. But so you can see by that how much Cedar McLeod is experienced in recognizing astrological correlations for the cards. But in addition to that, we've got and looks like we moved ahead. Can we go back one slide?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. And so because I still want to touch on the Hierophant, because I think that even though that made sense for Taurus, I don't know that I also want to talk about why it's the Hierophant. The Hierophant is considered the spiritual authority or spiritual leader. And so I think one of the things that we get with the Hierophant is this sense of I guess I'm not sure. Maybe I should have let you go forward. I'm like, oh, maybe I don't know what I want to say. There is a rule. One of the things that we think about with that Hierophant energy is rules and regulations and structure. And again, I think that's where a lot of this stuff comes back into the Hierophant, into Taurus. I think it's a good fit for the Hierophant. It's about the structure of things. It's not about the spiritual component of religion or spirituality. It is about the structure of spiritual practices, the rules, the just the I had somebody mentioned, we were talking about a particular Buddhist symbolism, and he said, "Oh, I've always seen them do this one thing in the ceremony, and I never knew what it meant." And it was like, yeah, that's it. When there's an action that's always taken, and it's been taken for years or decades or millennia, but you don't necessarily know what it means. That's that energy of the Hierophant. And it's the practice that we always do and that we're committed to doing, and that structures our spiritual practice, and we may or may not understand it.
Well, and I think of farming in a conscious way, not just like, well, I'm just going to spread all this fertilizer. I'm going to do this to, fatten the cow. It's like more in a conscious way that's healthy to the animal and healthy to humanity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that brings out a really nice nuance to that. I appreciate that quite a bit.
So we have Taurus Decan number 1, the 5 of Pentacles, and I'll let Joy lead us through that.
So, and again, I just love this deck. I love these cards. And so we've got the Golden Dawn title is the Lord of Material Trouble. And Crowley calls it worry. And it's Mercury ruling the first decan of Taurus. And Mercury is actually going to be in this decan during this upcoming month, although it's not in it during when the sun's there. So we've got the sun there between April 19th to 29th, and then Mercury enters into that decan on May 10th, and it's just there for 5 days. Once Mercury's slow, but once he gets going, he is really going to pick up speed, and he is going to rush through Taurus very quickly this month. So we've got the 5 of Pentacles, and it's assigned to millet, which is an ancient grain. It is a gluten-free grain, so those people that don't eat gluten are familiar with this one. And it's also the grain that we use as birdseed. And I just love this little bird here out in the snow, and somebody has thoughtfully thrown out a handful of millet for him, or it's just fallen from the plant probably, and he's able to get himself a meal, even in times of trouble. And so, really wonderful interpretation here, beautiful card, and that really fits the traditional Rider-Waite Smith imagery of the two people walking in the snow, the two kind of beggars and ill people that are walking through the snow outside the church. Mercury is an interesting ruler for this decan, and Mercury has so much movement, and he's the swiftest, apart from the moon, just of the planets. He is the swiftest of the planets, and is known for that, the swiftest of the gods. And so it's like he is zipping along, and he hits Taurus, and under the symbolism, like he's actually moving quite quickly through Taurus right now, but the symbolism is that Taurus just grinds him to a halt. And so this fast thinking, fast moving on to the next thing. Energy of Mercury just hits Taurus and has to slow down. And the idea that he's got to, with the tarot card, he's got to think carefully about what does he really need right now. Because he can go anywhere he wants. He can think about, he can make any kind of plan he wants, but is he focused on what he needs to be focused on? And so Taurus gives him a little bit of structure, a little bit of a reminder of reality, and like, are your plans, do you have plans that are gonna get you through any kind of challenges or tough times? And so I think that's part of what we find with Mercury in Taurus, and with this card in particular.
Well, and I really like the deck that you picked out, because you've been, finding some very interesting decks to use each month. And I so appreciate all your help with the slides. It's greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we have Mercury here in the astrology chart, and this chart's for April 20th at 2:39 p.m. in Seattle, and I'll let you start.
Yeah, and so I had to add Mercury. There's so many planets lined up there. Mercury is currently at 3 degrees of Aries, or for this chart is at 3 degrees of Aries. And it's the way that the glyphs were laid out, it's a little bit confusing if you're not used to looking at charts. So I added a second, and that's why you'll see Mercury on there twice, because I added it just to be more clear about where his actual position was. And so, and he's sextile to Pluto, and that's the chart I pulled, was the exact sextile over to Pluto at 3 degrees Aquarius. But he's also trine over there to Mars in Leo. And in addition, the sun in the beginning of Taurus is likewise square to both Mars and Pluto. So we get that T square as well. Mercury has just kind of, he went direct back on April 6th, I think, or 5th, or something like that. 5th, 6th, or 7th, somewhere right in there. And so has been, but he's still under the shadow now. He hasn't quite gotten back to where he was, which I don't honestly remember, but I think it might have been 6 degrees of Aries.
It's
but
9 or 10. It's 9 or 10.
9 or 10. Okay. I was thinking it was okay. And so it's Mars that was 6 degrees of Leo. Okay, good. I had them swapped. Yeah, so Mars was it comes out from under the shadow when it hits 6 degrees of Leo, and Mercury at 9 or 10 of Aries. And so it's still moving a little bit slower, still working through, whatever its retrograde was about for you, still working through that and coming out, and still working towards coming out of that. But then once it gets going, like I said, it's going to go during this month, it's going to go from where it is right now all the way through well into Taurus. It starts moving very quickly. Mercury is also besieged with, this has come up several times, so I'm kind of like, I'm starting to see these quite a bit. But when we get these tight relationships, it is separating from Pluto. It's separating from Mars. Sorry, it's separating from the trine to Mars, and at this point, it's exact with Pluto, but just prior to this exact time, it would have been separating from Mars and applying to Pluto. And because and the and there's no other aspects that are in the way of that. So that is besieged, which is that separation from a malefic and applying to another malefic. The malefics in this case being Saturn and Mars, as well as the 3 outer planets. And so we can see in here, Mars is under the shadow, Mercury is under the shadow and besieged, and we can see some of the challenges and some of the difficulties that kind of relate to our 5 of Pentacles. And I think that you had some things that you wanted to point out here, and so I'm interested to hear about that.
Well, we can see that Pluto is opposite Mars, and then Mars is trine to Mercury, and then sextiles back to Pluto. So that's called a point of Thales. It's another triangle, like we have trines, finger of gods, Thor's hammers. It's another triangle. And this one, it's like the opposition in forms. So you get the information you need. And then when Mars trines Mercury, then it's like, okay, now we have the information. Now we can work it out. But it's really interesting. Like you said, Mars and Mercury still haven't moved past their shadows, so it could take a little bit of time to come up with a resolution. And then Mercury sextiles back to Pluto, and then that's where you put the finishing touches on it, or it comes to fruition. So I like these point of Thales, because it's like it's asking for a change or an action, but it's all working together to work through that and make it happen.
Yeah, I love that. It kind of gives Mercury the role of negotiating between Mars and Pluto, I guess.
Yes, I would say that.
Okay.
And can you explain to our audience that doesn't know what a besieged means?
Oh yeah, and it is being caught between 2 difficult planets, and it can be by aspect, which is what we have here, and the energy of the planet is considerably hampered, or it's like it's caught, and caught between a rock and a hard place type of energy. And so Mercury is dealing with Mars on one side and Pluto on the other side. And I like your interpretation of this point of Thales, because that helps him, gives him a little bit more power to negotiate that. But as just the idea of being besieged makes him trapped with these 2 energies kind of coming at him, and he doesn't have, his power and abilities are reduced. And we've talked about this the last couple times, and I had a personal example last time of when Mars stationing direct in Cancer was square to my Sun, which is conjunct my Saturn. So my Sun was caught between natal Saturn and natal Mars, and I mentioned that I had a great deal of depression at that time when that was caught. So Venus, and then we also talked about Venus being besieged. And so the day Venus was besieged, which was on April 6th, and it was besieged in between Mars and Saturn. And that day, I was having this discussion with my boyfriend, who wanted one thing. And then my father called, and he had this problem, and he wanted something else. So the boyfriend would be Mars and my father would be Saturn. And I just felt like I can't help both of these people at the same time. It's like, if I do the thing that the one wants, then I'm not able to help the other. If I do the thing that that one wants, I can't help. I felt that so strongly, like I want to do both of these things and help both of these people, but I literally cannot. And that was what that Venus, Venus was me. That's what that felt, the siege between Mars and Saturn. So now we've got Mercury, which will be thoughts and communication, besieged between that Mars and which is, it can be anger and men and things that you'll fight for, and then Pluto, which is that transformation. And so Mercury, but also Pluto can be control and power. So maybe Mercury and Aries wants some independence, but controlling Pluto doesn't want to let him go, and Mars is maybe kind of riling him on. Oh, you really should do this, you really should go off on your own, you should do something more independent. And Pluto is saying, no, you don't have the ability, you can't do it, something like that. It's hard without having a real specific person to apply this to. It's really hard to make a general assessment, but that might be an example.
Well, and thank you for sharing your personal example, because that's a great explanation. And then it's really interesting that the sun in Taurus is in a T-square with that Mars opposite Pluto. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I really like T-squares. I've got a lot of trines in my chart, and which are the blue lines. And so life is easy for me. Blue lines are easy. They can lead to laziness. Squares and oppositions, the red lines, those are challenges. And so, but challenges are an opportunity for growth. And so the sun is having that. And I think of squares as headbutting. They feel like you're up against something, and neither one is willing to budge. Whereas the opposition between Mars and Pluto pushes and pulls in opposite directions. One wants this and one wants this, and they just want to go different directions. And so the sun is trying to navigate between, the sun is the self, it's identity, its symbol is the king. And so that king energy is in between Mars, the warrior, and then Pluto, I just want to say plutocrat, because Pluto's the plutocrats, right? Plutocrats are Pluto. There's probably other ways of looking at that, because it's newer. We don't have the old traditional ways of looking at it. But it's that power and control. And so now the sun, unlike Mercury, the sun is here in Taurus. So the sun is kind of like, and they're all three. That's the other thing that we can look at, is that when we're working with squares like that, we're typically working within the same mode. And so these are the fixed mode. And so the sun wants what it wants there in Taurus, and it's going to be the most stubborn of those three. And then Mars is going to want to shine in Leo, and it's going to want to fight for some kind of respect, or being seen, or being able to shine its light. And then Pluto is over there in Aquarius, wanting to control the ideas and the thoughts and I think of Aquarius as a vision, the vision, the mission, the ideas, the philosophy, the underlying ideas that structure something. And so Pluto's trying to control that. And, you know, and that, I don't, one of the other reasons I don't like to, without, I like natal astrology and applying charts to people, horoscopic astrology, as opposed to mundane astrology. Because every time I try to go into this, it's like, oh, I could totally go into politics right now, but I don't want to. I'm not very knowledgeable about that, but just the idea of somebody trying to control the thought processes and the communication, and you know, somebody saying, how can we not, how can, and that's Pluto, and then Mars saying, no, we want these things to be seen for the truth of what they are. That's Mars and Leo. And then the Sun saying, I don't want to lose what I have. That you can put that into some things that lots of people are going through right now, probably pretty easily.
Well, I would say that possibly that T-square is asking for negotiation to come up with a new solution. Because if everybody just gave a little bit, it could change everything.
Well, that's true. But these big signs, I'm like, I agree with you, but I don't have my hopes are not up on this.
Well, I have hope for that, but we'll see what happens. Only time will tell, right?
Yes, exactly.
And the negotiation could take a little time, so we'll see.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, so for Taurus Decan number 2, we have the 6 of Pentacles, and the moon is ruling this Decan, and I'll let Joy jump in.
Yeah, and so we've got the 6 of Pentacles. The Golden Dawn title is the Lord of Material Success, and Crowley's title is just Success. There are a lot of successes in the Tarot Minor Arcana titles, and so it's really fairly significant to me that it is the Lord of Material Success. It's Moon ruling the second decan of Taurus, and Moon is exalted in Taurus. And I think that the exaltation degree is 3, and it's in the first decan of Taurus, but I'm not 100% sure on that, because I think the Moon's exaltation degree, different authors place it in different in different degrees, and so I'm not 100% on the Moon. And so Moon ruling the second decan of Taurus, and that is between, the Sun will be in the second decan between April 30th and May 9th. But the Moon itself, of course, the Moon goes through the whole zodiac every month, and so we'll always get the Moon going through all of its decans every month. But it'll be there April 27th. It's there less than, I think, 24 hours in any given decan, but that'll happen over April 27th to 28th. And so we've got the 6 of Pentacles, which is barley. And again, really clever choices. Barley is such a healthy grain. And barley is known for balancing blood sugar, which most grains are not that great at. and so using that grain that balances things to represent the 6 of Pentacles with the balance on it, I think is just very clever on the part of this deck creator. And so and just in terms of even working with the idea of the moon in this decan, the moon is the moon is, It's exalted in Taurus because the moon is so changeable, and Taurus gives it a little bit of some grounding and brings it down to earth. And the moon can be very dreamy and fickle and changeable, and it's not, the moon by itself is not necessarily balanced. And the moon can also be very emotional. And Taurus, when you put those emotions and bring them back into the physical body, it really grounds those emotions and helps you use them and put them to work. And so I think that's why the moon gets exalted here, and it just gives it some structure.
I like how the artist used the scale, and so that really goes along with what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. And this is often, that card is often associated with generosity.
Yes, exactly. So here we have the chart for May 3rd at 1:01 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, Seattle, and we're talking about the moon, so I'll let you go ahead and start.
Yeah, and so on this chart, of course, our sun is there in the second decan of Taurus, and the moon is in its sign of rulership, which is Cancer, and it's at 28 degrees there. And I noticed that that was there, and it's sextile over to Uranus and Taurus, and then back. I guess I'm going clockwise, but I'm going against the zodiac. Is it clockwise and clockwise? What am I doing? and then back past Uranus back to Saturn and the North Node there in Pisces at about 26, 28 degrees of Pisces. And those are kind of loosely sextile over there to Pluto at 3 degrees of Aquarius. I went ahead and counted that because I felt like it. I think the Pluto was marked by the software as being sextile to Taurus. Definitely opposites, marked opposite to the moon. But it is a lot looser than the others. And so then when we add the south node, and the only thing missing for a grand sextile was something at the end of Scorpio. So I double checked, and sure enough, Juno was there. And so we get Juno there also at right around 26, 27 degrees. And so we've got a really nice, except for Pluto, that's a little bit out of touch there, a little bit shifted away from this almost perfect Star of David, or hexagram, depending on what things you want to outline. It makes this very, very balanced arrangement of planets and points around the zodiac. And so and as a result, we get a series of, it's 2 grand trines and 3 bisextiles. Well, more than that. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Does that add up to 6 bisextiles, I guess, as well as just those, as well as all the sextiles, which I highlighted strongly. And so the energy of any of these, all of the sextiles, the trines, the grand trines, and this like ultimate, everything pattern, which is the grand sextile, it is a balanced, harmonizing energy. And the number 6 and such a configuration can be a symbol of perfection. And so our Six of Pentacles as generosity is such a good symbol for what's going on here. I think in terms of more direct interpretation, I think that moon here is, again, it's bringing harmony, because we saw kind of some challenges in the last one. And so the moon is going through this period where it's bringing some harmony into this, and kind of highlighting all of these different ways that things can work together. And so before, when we're like really limited in our ability, and it was hard to find a way to work together, in this one, the moon has moved into such a position that it's easy for all of these things to coordinate. Did you have anything you want to talk about Juno, or anything else in here?
Yes, many things. So there's 3 mystical rectangles within this. So I always think of them as some kind of a gift. Now, what is the gift? Is it something, is it a blessing? Is it a beautiful thing? Or is it a challenge, or not something that we care for too much? Can be any number of those. And I wanted to kind of start where you'd started with the moon. Our emotions goes to Uranus about change. Saturn, North Node, is structure and how we move forward. Then Pluto is power. Juno is relationships. And then the South Node of how we've done things. And I'll kind of reiterate about Juno is about our oaths. It's about how we partner. It's our relationships, and it's in the sign of Scorpio. So partnering on a deep level, and Juno can see below the surface. So if you have secrets or you're trying to hide something, that's probably not going to work too well. So if in a relationship, if you're having extra relationships that go against your commitment that you have, it could be exposed, as an example.
Yeah.
But committing on a deep level. So it's like this pattern is amazing. And to me, this gives hope.
It sure does. It sure does. Yeah, I like that. I think that there's so much here, and I do think that you're right, that secrets do have the ability to be exposed when we look at this. But I do think that there's so much hope and positivity and generosity in this arrangement, that it's one of those times, you know how when you're really worried about telling something to somebody, and then you do, and they're like, oh, I already knew that, or oh, that's no big deal, and you're like, I was so worried about this. And that's what this feels like. It's like, this is the time to tell the secret, and it's going to be like, no worries, it's fine.
Yeah, I had a client yesterday that she had gone to her counselor, and her counselor told her she had to tell her daughter something, and she was really, really nervous because she thought her daughter was going to react in a bad way. But the daughter already knew about it, and so it was like, oh, it wasn't so bad after all. But it was good to like just voice it so that all concerned were aware of the situation.
Yes, yeah. That's awesome. That's a perfect story.
So we have Taurus Decan number 3, the 7 of Pentacles, and Saturn is the ruling planet. And Joy's going to tell us about this card.
Yeah, absolutely. And so our Golden Dawn title is the Lord of Success Unfulfilled. Although I tend to rephrase that as the Lord of Success Not Yet Fulfilled, because I do think that this card represents patience. And if you can continue to watch for opportunities, I think that success can still be achieved. And this is again in sharp contrast to the previous card, which was material success. This is success unfulfilled. And so following that material success, it is a little bit of a falling off. Crowley gives this one failure. And so Crowley's 3 keywords, we went from worry to success to failure. And with the Golden Dawn, it was material trouble into material success, into that success doesn't quite bring out what you wanted it to. It doesn't lead to the thing that you wanted it to lead to. And so this is Saturn ruling the 3rd decan of Taurus. And Saturn, of course, is going to be very strict and disciplined. It has a lot of similarity to Taurus keywords in terms of having a certain amount of determination and commitment and longevity and endurance. But as this kind of cold, dry, slow planet, when you put it in Taurus, all of those energies are then they're double. It's double down on all of that, on that heavy, earthy, fixed, immutable energy. It's like, and so so that can be fabulous for somebody that really is playing the long game, that really is building something and doesn't need it to happen anytime soon. There's a lot of determination and endurance and long-term commitment to things, but it is slow going. And the sun is going through that decan between May 10th and 20th. And I checked, since our other 2 planets get into their decans this month, I checked Saturn, and it'll be in Taurus next 2028 to 2030. And so it'll be in that 3rd decan probably around 2030. So we've got a few years. But oatmeal, oats is our grain for this one. And this shows the person getting burned on the pan when they're making the oatmeal. I gotta say, personally, I have the worst trouble making steel cut oats. They always boil over or I set the heat too low, and and I come back later and check on them, and they're not even bubbling or anything, and it's just all this watery mess. And like, how can I not make oats? Why is this so hard for me? And so I really, really relate to oats being my success unfulfilled. But I'm not sure what the artist actually had in mind, but I definitely relate to it. I think another thing that people have trouble making is rice. I'm usually pretty good at rice, but my current stove that I have is electric. I was on a gas stove for a long time, and those are so nice. And now on this electric, it's just like the heat just won't go down fast enough to keep things from boiling over. You have to be really, really, you really have to keep your eye on it, as it, so that you can get the lid on at the right time, that it doesn't boil over, but it does keep the heat in and let the little alchemical magic of creating really yummy rice or really yummy oatmeal happen.
Patience is required, and you will master it one of these days.
Oh my God, you would think.
Okay. So we're going to look at Saturn in the chart, and the chart date is May 15th at 11:28 a.m. Seattle, Washington, and I'll let Joy start.
Yeah, and so we've got a grand cross here, and again, those squares link by mode. And so we have all 4 of these positions in mutable signs. So our last one we looked at that had the T-square, that was in fixed. So that's all like not able to, it was the energy of the aspect is this kind of non-budging energy, but the signs of the last one we looked at, the T-square, were fixed as well. Now we've still got the aspect with that those squares, but the signs are mutable, so they're a lot better at negotiating and a lot better at kind of adjusting and making those little adjustments to kind of find how to work with that otherwise stubborn and challenging energy. So we've got Saturn there at the end of Pisces, and it's I mean, it's still hanging out there. It's going to move. It does. I think it moves into Aries next month, but it doesn't do it during our Taurus season. I think it is next month that it finally moves into Aries. And of course, it doesn't get very far and it'll retrograde, but it's right at that last degree of Pisces, as is the moon. In fact, I believe this chart was pulled for moon square Saturn. And so we got moon there at the very final degree of Sagittarius. And those are both square or opposite, depending on which one. I can't say them both at the same time. Saturn is opposite to the south node and square to Gemini and the moon, whereas moon is opposite to Jupiter and square to Saturn and the south node. Well, to both nodes. It's square to the nodal axis. And so that energy, again, is steady. It's locked. It's foundational. And that Seven of Pentacles needs that patience. But I'm more optimistic about this one than I was the previous one, where I'm like, I don't think this is ever going to happen. Because I think the negotiation in here is, I think there's a little more wiggle room with those mutable signs, and that success not yet fulfilled has that potential to work out. There's kind of a lot going on because both the moon and Jupiter are square to that nodal axis. And one of the things, we've talked about this before, I'm sure this came up before, but it interrupts the energy of the nodal axis, and the points, the north node and south node can actually flip when the moon is square to them, or I think when any planet is square to them, just depending on the influences of the planet. But it definitely interrupts the energy. And so the north node of where you're trying to get to and the south node of what you're trying to leave behind, that can become confused when we've got these planets squaring that. And so Saturn is trying to give us a little bit more. It really does. I don't know. Saturn wants to lock it down. Saturn likes that square energy. It wants to lock it down, but it's in the anaretic degree, and which is a degree of collapse, as is the moon. And so there's definitely, it's like this thing, whatever this is representing, really does feel like it's on the verge of just that little twist that, when you there's
like a twist of fate.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's some kind of I don't even know what it is, but I'm thinking of a kite, but I don't think that's what it is. But you get those things that are like made out of kind of a kite-like material, like a nylon, and they collapse really easily, and then you can shake them and then they open up, and it just takes a little bit of a twist to collapse it down again. This is not a very good example because I can't I have an image in my head of what this is, but I don't know what it's called or what its purpose is. It's like, is it some camping thing? I don't know. But yeah, just like anything that just the structure, the framework of something that can just twist a little bit and the whole thing collapses. I think that's what I'm seeing here. So I'll let you chime in before I ramble off too far in useless.
Well, I always think of the planets that are square the nodes, I call it in the bendings, that those energies require an integration. So the moon in Sagittarius, it's emotional, but in Sagittarius, it's emotional around their beliefs. And then Jupiter is about expanding, and it's in Gemini about communication. So it could be that there's some pieces of the puzzle or the information we haven't received all the information. So we could say Saturn in the North Node is about the structure of how we move forward. That Jupiter is saying we need to maybe gather some more information or come up with some new ideas. The South Node is how it's been and what do we want to let go of. And the moon is like, well, does that go with my beliefs or against my beliefs? So it's like working on this energy to work through it. And I always think of grand crosses as kind of being pulled in 4 different directions. It's like, well, I kind of want to do this, but no, I want to go do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do this. But I always think of just address one direction and the rest will kind of fall into place.
Yeah, that makes good sense to me. And I think with the moon opposite Jupiter, I like the way that you identify that as the moon's beliefs. And I think that Jupiter has new information that changes the moon's beliefs. And that can be that can just be a moment of clarification, like, oh, I didn't know that makes so much more sense. Or it can really, like, whoa, that when sometimes you can get information that does collapse everything, and that really is a blow. Again, I don't like mundane astrology because I don't like politics or anything, but I was just reading before I got on. There's I still get the headlines from the Denver Post, and there was a headline that 3 students in Colorado are suing the Trump administration for because their visas were revoked and they're suing because they were wrongfully revoked. And that's that kind of thing that you just get up one day going about your business like you always do, and all of a sudden you get this letter in the mail saying, or I don't know, a cop showing up on your doorstep, arresting. I don't know what happened. I didn't read the article. I just read the headlines, and all of a sudden it's just like, oh, my whole world just shifted here. What the heck? Why is this going on? So it can, this information, interrupting something can be very, very difficult, very challenging, very life-changing.
And this chart, like the first chart we looked at, has a point of Thales from that Saturn North Node. The structure of how to move forward is opposite the South Node. So maybe looking at how we've done things in the past and what parts do we really let go of and what maybe we don't let go of because maybe we're letting go of too much. Then it trines the sun. And so from that South Node to the sun, and then sextiles back to that Saturn North Node. It's like the Grand Cross feeds into it, but then also this point of Thales of how can we readjust the plan to move forward, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm just thinking, because I glanced at the date, and you had said the date, of course, earlier, but this is May 15th, and of course that moon's only going to be there again for just a moment as it moves through there. But we had a bunch of Saturn Jupiter squares a while back when they were both going through their retrogrades, and they were in the middle of the signs. And so here they are revisiting that square, and the nodal axis is turning it into between Saturn and Jupiter in the nodal axis. We get that T square. That'll be longer lasting than just that one day that the moon flips through there. And so there's still a lot of that energy that'll last a little bit longer than this one date. But
I would agree with that.
yeah. And so just trying to tie that back into what you were saying. I think that there's a lot here, and it's not just this one date. I know what I was going to say. I think some of the squares that we had between Saturn and Jupiter earlier, now they're aligned with the nodal axis that they weren't before. So some of the conflicts that they represented when they showed up a few months ago now are lined up with the nodal axis, which can bring out that direction. I think, is that how would you see that? I see that this Jupiter Mars conflict gets some direction or some input almost from that nodal axis. Does that make sense?
A more constructive way to resolve it, I would say, with that Saturn involved.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the court card. We have the Taurus court card, and I'll let Joy talk about that.
So yeah, and so our King of Pentacles is our Taurus card, and it's the last decan of Aries and the first two decans of Taurus. So people that have had their birthday or having their birthday this week could be King of Pentacles. They're in the last decan of Aries. And the card here is cake for the King of Pentacles, which I do think is a real Taurus thing. The king is going to be the again the culmination of the suit, or the kind of achievement of the suit, and so the idea of the grain energy of Taurus, but also the luxury and indulgence energy of Taurus combine here very nicely to give us this very, and not just any old cake. This is one of those really fancy, like, cakes that are on the TV shows. and it's just like so much attention to detail and so much energy and beauty. And nobody needs a cake that's shaped like a castle, but isn't it cool? I mean, like, somebody put so much effort into this type of thing. That all has a real Taurian feel to it, and it would have been a really expensive cake too, so very fancy. But definitely looks super delicious. So happy birthday to anybody that is celebrating at this time.
Well, thank you, Joy. And I want to thank our audience for watching live. And I want to thank you, Joy, for working on the slides with me. You did most of the work. I really appreciate it. Is there any last thoughts you want to leave people with?
No, I think I'm good today.
Yeah, just have patience. It's going to work out. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, exactly.
So Joy and I both do consultations, have newsletters and YouTube channels. So we appreciate you contacting us or subscribing. And I'm going to let Joy tell you about her slide here.
Yeah, absolutely. I've blogged for many years, but I recently joined Substack, and so you can follow me there if you find that easy, or you can subscribe to my blog as well, via email, directly on the blog, which is, you can go to my website, joyvernon.com, or my blog you can find at completelyjoyous.com as well. But Substack also gives you, some people find it easier to subscribe. They've got a number of things that they follow, and I try to do a few posts every month, and it's just a good way to stay on top of things. And this is a meetup that I've got scheduled for tomorrow. We're going to discover how image variations change card meanings. And you can take a look at those 3 cards and how different they are. Those are all examples of the 6 of Cups. And so the one on the left, the Barbara Walker Tarot, was my very first tarot deck. So you can imagine how my 6 of Cups idea like shifted considerably when I started buying other tarot decks. I was like, oh, this is not necessarily how other people see this card. And so we're going to be talking about that, looking at examples from different decks, and I invite people to bring their own decks and share any cards that they're feeling challenged about or confused about. And it's tomorrow morning via Zoom, and you can sign up through my meetup group.
Thank you. And then there's always more upcoming shows. The Astrology Star Sisters do Chinese astrology, decans, dwarf planets, fixed stars, planet stationing, Uranian astrology, and Venus star point. And a couple of days ago, I did the Cosmic Connections relationship astrology. That's a new one. And another new one coming up is magical astrology. Justin and I do the astrology forecast and full moon forecast each month. And then a new show coming up is Midpoints. I will be on Talk Cosmos on April 27th at 1 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, talking about the Taurus new moon and imagine the future. And you can watch it live here on my channel or come back and watch it at your convenience. And to get a hold of Joy, it's joyvernon.com. My website is alightpath.com. And again, Joy, I want to thank you for being here today. And we'll be back next month with the Gemini Decans. So we're going to say goodbye for now, and we'll see you next time.